If a woman exhibits these 9 body language signs, she wants space, without saying it. Reading body language is a bit like trying to decipher a text in a language you don't speak. You might catch a word here and there, but the real message slips through your fingers. And let's be honest, relationships can be tricky enough without having to figure out what someone isn't saying out loud, especially when it comes to needing space. I've noticed that women often communicate this not with words, but with subtle body language shifts. It's not always obvious, but once you start noticing the signs, things start to click. So, how can you tell when she needs some breathing room? Let's take a look at these subtle clues that might be her way of saying, "Give me a little space." 1. Crossed arms and legs. Body language is a powerful communicator, often more telling than words. And those who are perceptive can pick up on these subtle cues. Let's start with crossed arms and legs. These are universal signs of defensiveness and discomfort. Crossed arms or legs signal a barrier, indicating that she's closing herself off from further interaction. It's a protective stance showing that she's not open to what you're saying or doing. This could be her unspoken way of asking for some space. So if you notice this sign, it might be time to back off a little. 2. Lack of eye contact. Eye contact is a powerful form of nonverbal communication. In fact, research has shown that making eye contact activates specific areas in the brain, responsible for processing the intentions and emotions of the person you're interacting with. This explains why the absence of eye contact can feel so telling. I recall an experience I had with a friend. We were out for coffee and I noticed she was avoiding my gaze. She seemed distracted, constantly looking around the cafe, at her phone, anywhere but at me. At first, I thought she might just be tired or preoccupied. But as it continued, I realized that her avoidance of eye contact was a silent way of communicating her need for distance. If you notice a woman avoiding eye contact, it could be her way of signaling that she's emotionally distancing herself and may need some space. 3. Leaning away. Leaning is an instinctive behavior that our bodies use to express our comfort level with the people around us. When we feel connected and comfortable with someone, we naturally lean towards them. It's a subconscious way of saying, "I'm interested in you and this conversation." Interestingly, research has proven that leaning forward not only signals interest, but also increases brain activity associated with desire and motivation. In one study, participants who leaned forward while looking at appetizing pictures showed greater brain activity related to approach motivation, compared to those who reclined. This highlights how leaning forward is more than just a body language cue. It can also reflect heightened engagement. Conversely, if a woman is consistently leaning away from you during a conversation, it may indicate her need for space. It's her body's way of communicating that she's not entirely comfortable in the situation. 4. Minimal physical contact. Touch is another significant aspect of nonverbal communication. A gentle touch on the arm or a friendly hug can express warmth and closeness. If a woman usually initiates or reciprocates physical contact, but suddenly stops, it can be an indication that she's asking for space. It could be that she's subconsciously trying to establish boundaries without having to verbalize them. 5. Short responses. Okay, this one isn't exactly a body language cue, but it's closely related. The way she responds verbally, combined with her body language, can offer important hints. If her replies are short and curt, it could signal that she's not in the mood for a deep or lengthy conversation. This might be her subtle way of indicating that she needs some alone time. However, there could be other reasons for her brief responses, such as stress or being preoccupied with something else, so try to consider these factors before jumping to conclusions. 6. She's constantly on her phone. In this day and age, our phones are practically extensions of ourselves. but they can also serve as convenient barriers when we need a moment of respite. If you notice that she's spending more time on her phone than engaging with you, it could be a sign. It might be her way of creating a buffer, a silent message saying, "I need some space right now." As someone who cherishes the people in my life, I understand how hard it can be to see these signs, but giving her the space she needs can be the most loving thing to do. It shows respect for her feelings and personal boundaries. 7. Avoiding close proximity. Proximity is another subtle but powerful indicator of a person's comfort level. I remember a time when I was at a social event. I was feeling overwhelmed, and without realizing it, I started to keep a physical distance from others. I chose to stand away from the group, or move to another spot when someone came too close. If you notice that she's consistently keeping a physical distance from you, it could be her unspoken way of asking for some space. Everyone needs a bit of breathing room every now and then, so try to respect her personal space and not insist on closing the distance if she's not ready. 8. Fewer smiles. Smiling is a universal sign of happiness and comfort. If you find that she's smiling less around you, it may indicate that something is off. A lack of smiles doesn't necessarily mean she's unhappy with you. She could just be going through a tough time and needs some space to process her feelings. Again, context is key. If her smile has faded and it's accompanied by some of these other signs, it might be a good idea to give her the space she needs. 9. She's less expressive. Paying attention to changes in someone's expressiveness can reveal far more than words ever could. If she's typically animated, using her hands when she talks, with a face that lights up during conversations, but suddenly becomes unusually quiet and reserved, that shift speaks volumes. It's like watching a vibrant painting lose its color. This change in behavior could mean she's retreating inward, processing something on her own, or simply feeling emotionally drained. When someone who is usually full of energy withdraws like this, they might be silently signaling their need for personal space or a mental break. Final thoughts. Step back to move forward. Stepping back and giving someone space isn't always easy, especially when you care. But sometimes it's the best thing you can do for a relationship. You don't have to decode every little gesture perfectly, but if you notice these shifts, it might be time to let her breathe. Respecting someone's unspoken need for space helps build trust. By honoring her boundaries, you show that you value her as an individual, and that quiet, mutual respect can bring you closer in ways you didn't expect. Relationships thrive when there's room to grow. For both of you.